Revelers, this is Off the Rails, Right versus Left, the podcast that we do because we think the left is evil. I'm Rob B.
And I'm Brad Lee.
And I'm Brian G.
And we are Off the Rails, Right versus Left. Again, we're doing this show because we think everybody needs to know that the left is Welcome, revelers. It's Off the Rails, Right versus Left. I'm Rob B, and I'm absent today of Brad Lee and Brian G. But probably for the best, because what I've got to say today would probably make Brad cry a little bit. And that is what seems to be clear to me, that Trump seems to be determined to lose this election. The amount of goodwill that he received after the assassination attempt completely squandered, because he's right back to whining. He's right back to complaining about what happened in 2020. He's not focusing his attention on the things that he needs to focus on. Now, to back this up, I want to go ahead and cover some of the polls that are going on right now. Now, the first one actually looks pretty good for Trump. So this map, it's the way the polls look right now, with no toss-ups on Real Clear Politics. Now, Real Clear Politics actually tends to get pretty close to accurate because they average out all of the polls. So right now, you can see Trump's definitely dropped off Michigan. So that's the first of the battleground states that have fallen. He's supposed to be winning Wisconsin. He's not. So it's already starting to swing. Now, at this point, he would still be looking at a nice victory. Okay. But he's about to lose Pennsylvania. The numbers are going the wrong way. And this is getting very locked. Now, we can't trust the New York Times Siena poll. It's showing that he's got 4 points behind Harris here. But if we go and look at, let's see here. Let's share this instead. When we look at this is the scorecards for how the different polls do. And New York Times Siena, their average error is 4.3%. And 77% of the time, the error is in favor of the Democrats. So they overreport the margins for Democrats by 4.3%. So what that shows is Pennsylvania being a toss-up. Okay? It shouldn't be. And if it comes down to a toss-up, we already know the Democrats can manufacture the votes at the last minute. And yes, I'm saying they will manufacture the votes at the last minute and ahead of time by getting people registered to vote that aren't legally able to vote, and by ballot harvesting and flooding the drop boxes. So it'll be the same thing. The numbers are going to just climb for Harris after the first night of the election. And Pennsylvania has already announced we're not going to know the results of the election until days after the election. I don't know why entire countries with 30 million can count their votes, but a state with like 10 million can't seem to get it done. I don't get it, but hey, there it is. Okay, so when you start looking at most of these polls, it's showing pretty close, but there's starting to be a trend of a lot more blues coming on top in these important areas. Okay, now overall, it is showing Harris having about a half-point lead in the national race, which Democrats need to win about 3% to win the Electoral College, because a large number of their votes come in California and New York, and more people in California and New York voting for her isn't going to get her more electoral votes than she was already going to get, because she was always going to get those. Okay, but then if we figure in Kennedy, Stein, and West, which we don't know how many ballots Kennedy is going to be on yet, but now we're up to a percentage point. If it gets over 2.5, Trump loses the election. Okay. And again, with all the spending that the Democrats have used, to get us into the financial hole that our country's in, and they can't make this argument that we need to get rid of Democrats in the Senate to the point that they still have a 2-point congressional vote margin, that will get some people that aren't like thrilled about this voting Democrat. So let's see. Let's flip over to this tab. Okay. So there it is. 47.6 to 47.1. So general election, Harris showing up by half a point. Georgia, Trump is up by 0.6, which we know Fulton County is going to find some more votes for Harris. Pennsylvania, 47.8 to 47. And that's going to go down because Kennedy, he's going to pull more votes from Trump than he is from Kamala, because Kamala and Kennedy are both batshit crazy, but the batshit crazy Democrats are still going to vote Democrat. But the batshit crazy non-Democrats will split off and go to Kennedy. So that's not good. This right here, 56% disapprove. Okay, so here's what Trump's doing wrong. Okay, he's trying to make a lot of good points. Okay, but he makes it all about personal attacks that aren't going to work. Like the stuff about her race, her being a flip-flopper. Now, J.D. Vance, he vocalized it well, but he's not the candidate for president. Okay, all Trump needs to do is every single question they ask him, just point to the fact, quickly say what his policy is, point out what the Biden-Harris policy is, and the damage that the Biden-Harris policy does. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he dribbles on and whines about how unfair everything is and how they're going to try and cheat. You don't hear a solution for how he's going to stop them from cheating. You don't hear a solution. Like every single time he gets a question, he should be like, policy, policy, policy. And he's not. He's trying to, laughing Kamala. Well, how about instead of laughing Kamala, it's commie Kamala? You know, how about, she's a prosecutor? Yeah, she prosecutes so well, she kept black men in prison past their terms. That's the stuff he should be saying. He should ruin it so they can't do a single negative soundbite without it slamming Kamala Harris on what actually matters. Instead, he's done such a horrible job of it. Now Kamala Harris is out here and stealing his points that are very popular, like no taxes on tips. Well, it's funny because if he had been doing his job right, he would have gotten out ahead of it and been like, Biden-Harris hired 87,000 more IRS workers so they can go after your tips and make sure that they get them, but I'm not going to tax your tips. They want to increase the taxes on everybody because the average household saved like $1,500 in taxes under Trump. Biden-Harris wants to bring them out. That's an extra $1,500 in taxes that everybody's going to pay over what they're paying now. And when they talk about this record low unemployment rate, he needs to say the unemployment rate is fake. Like completely fake. The real number is the job participation number, which less people are working than were. All the unemployment rate counts is the number of people that are filing unemployment. Okay, well, if you've been unemployed over X amount of time, well, you're not getting unemployment anymore, so you no longer count. And we're in the third year. So all the people that lost their jobs in the first year and second year and lost their employment, they're still not employed. They just don't count as unemployed anymore. So the unemployment rate doesn't matter. Now, then you have to, he should be attacking the substance on all of these issues. And he's not attacking any of them. What he's allowing, she's got her little honeymoon period going. He's not going after her policy. And when he does, it's like so quippy that he thinks it's clever, but it's not resonating with anybody in America because they don't know what the hell he's talking about. And he needs to speak clearly. Like, this was supposed to be what everybody liked about Trump, was that he talks like normal people, but he's not explaining what the issues are with Kamala like a normal person. All he does is keep insulting her, like he's just trying to make like fire memes. Well, fire memes aren't going to get him elected. So as this swing slowly happens to where it's a close vote in all these different states, he's not doing anything to close it up. So he's going to end up losing the election. And there's no plan to stop illegals from voting. There's no plan to stop them from cheating in Fulton County again. There's no plan to keep them from cheating in Arizona again. And particularly and make no mistake, Kemp in Arizona, he was in massive debt. Suddenly he has no more debt, but he didn't bother observing any of the polls or make sure no funny business went on in the election in 2022, right? So what we're watching is exactly what's happened to every year with Trump. He sits there and like disassembles his entire message to the point where it's not a cohesive message. It's not a laid out vision. He wants to make America great again. Okay. How are you going to do that? And why can Kamala not? Or why will Kamala not? Okay. So, okay, she's against fracking. What's that mean? Well, we still have some fracking. Okay. So if she gets rid of more fracking, the prices of oil are going to go up even more. And the only reason there's been slight reprieve is because they've actually gone and started reversing some of their oil policies just long enough to get to the election. Now, if they get elected again and they get the swings that they want in the Senate and in the House, they're going to make all of these illegal immigrants that they let in citizens. And who are they going to thank for being citizens? Harris and Walz. And so they're going to vote Harris Walz until their next generation are able to like see the damage that they've done to the country. And by then there probably won't be elections anymore because these are communists. Communists don't allow elections to last. Walz is worse than Kamala Harris. Walz literally put a bill that if your boy thinks he's a girl and you don't chop his dick off, they'll take him away from you. That should be easy to point that guy is evil. And yet Trump can't land that. That's the easiest freaking hit. Kamala Harris. Like, she doesn't know anything about what's going on in the world. Like, when you ask her if she's been to the border, she thinks it's equivalent to going to Europe. That's literally a quote from her. When he does these rallies, he shouldn't show charts, touting himself. He should be playing Kamala Harris on that billboard every 5 minutes to show what her message is and what she's doing. So when the other news agencies try and cover him, they can cover him covering her. Since they're not going to cover her, every time they ask him a question, he should be like, that's a great question. I'm going to answer it right after I ask, why aren't you guys asking Kamala Harris any questions? Now, the answer is, like, he should be doing that every single time. Vance should be doing that. Trump should be doing that. They need to put on the pressure because in order to keep them from cheating, like literally the too big to cheat, that's how the victory has to go. And that's not the way it's going. If they do not get up in the national poll by 5%, the Democrats will find a way to cheat it. Okay? There's already been stories done that have proven that in Georgia, one of the battleground states, they're registering thousands of illegal immigrants to vote, and they've been voting for years. Then you got states like California, motor vehicle, and they aren't the only ones. Are they giving people IDs in Pennsylvania? Like, it doesn't have to be legal in state law if they got some bureaucrats over at the DMV that are willing to give them a driver's license and register them to vote. These people that are coming on the supposed claims of asylum, they're being given taxpayer identification numbers, so they're just calling that social security numbers and saying, "Oh, you're a citizen. Here's your voting papers." What are we doing to root those out? Nothing. These close states like Pennsylvania is a battleground state, but they got a Democrat governor. You think he's not going to have his hand in the pot? He was almost the on the ticket with her. You think he isn't going to be there helping her like pull off the steal? Of course she will. So what exactly are Republicans doing? If we don't know what Republicans are doing to stop it, then they ain't doing enough to stop it. The lawsuits to fix stuff, they can't talk about it. They need to do it now. They need to find people that will be disaffected to join those lawsuits so they can't try and say that they don't have standing in the state, because all of the election fraud cases, they weren't dropped because they weren't valid. Like the media lied for since the 2020 election that they were dropped because they were debunked. They weren't dropped because they were debunked because the person who brought it couldn't prove standing and couldn't prove the harm. Okay, so you need to make these cases ahead of time. Even if the cases get dismissed, well, then when you get past the election and you file the cases, now the judges can't throw them out because you should have filed the case before the election, because you already filed the case before the election. You wouldn't hear it. Now it's time. Because like half of the cases were thrown out when they challenged the unconstitutional and illegal election laws. They were like, well, you should have filed it before the election. Case dismissed. These should be filed now, not later. You know, it's easier to fix the problems with the election before it happens. If they wait until after the election in 2024, we're going to have the same results that we had in 2023. We're going to have, we go to bed, Trump's in the lead, and we wake up and Kamala Harris is the president. That's what's going to happen again. Okay? Now, it is possible that they can make it a margin that they can't even cheat to make up. But the only way they can do that is if they get on point. They got to hit Kamala Harris on the fact that she said that she wants to give Social Security and Medicaid, which are already bankrupt, to another 20 million people that aren't paying into the system, never paid into the system, and will never pay into the system. That needs to be a message from Trump and Vance anytime a camera is put in their face. Oh, yeah. And so then the government's going to have to spend money to shore up those programs, which is going to be more money into the system, which is going to increase inflation more, because they're going to have to print more money to send it to the illegal immigrants. Okay? You think your kids aren't getting a good education now with like 25, 30 kids in the class, 35 kids in the class? Imagine how bad the education is going to be with 50 kids in the class, and the progress in the class is slowed down because they have to teach a bunch of kids that don't speak English. You think that's not going to affect your kids' education? And that's a message that they have to say. You want to talk about the mass deportation of all these illegal immigrants? Okay, great. It sounds wonderful. Donald Trump, what is your plan? How are you going to deport 20 million people? Donald Trump, how are you going to stop the cartels from trafficking people into this country? How are you going to stop the cartels from trafficking drugs into this country? Yeah, it's time to say, guess what? Mexico is our neighbor, but they are not our friends. Okay, it's time to say, hey, if Mexico keeps allowing the cartels to come in, we're going to bomb the cartels. And if their Air Force gets in our way while we're bombing the cartels, we will shoot them down. And if they want to have a problem, we'll come across the border and take control of the border. Then you don't have troops operating on U.S. cities. You'll have them operating on Mexican ground. And then you can drive the point home while they're making that incursion. Hey, guess what? If we catch you on the soil, you're going back to Mexico, and we're going to put you so deep in Mexico you can't get back, because we're going to control the first 500 miles of Mexico. These are things that Donald Trump needs to say. Mexico is not our friend. They've screwed us economically. They've screwed us with the drug trade. They screwed us with human trafficking. They've opened up their southern borders so people can get to our southern border. They are not our friends. They are our enemies. The woman who just got elected president there, she's a communist. So she would love nothing better than to continue flooding people across our border so they can vote illegally in our election and make sure that this election gets tossed to the communists here. So her neighbor to the north is communist. just like theirs. You know, I mean, do you think that, like, at this point, Mexico can do anything about their cartels? They can't. They don't have the willpower to do it. Well, the soldiers probably do. Pretty much every country you're in, the soldiers are usually some tough SOBs. But I doubt they have the training or the equipment to do it. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet the cartels have better equipment than the military in Mexico. So if they do want to take it on, then they're going to need help. If they don't want to take it on, then we're going to have to take it on for them. And if they get in the way, they're the enemy. They're aligned with the cartel. Mexico is no longer a democracy. It's a narco state. And the socialists that will ignore them is who got installed by the cartels. You think with the cartels controlling 80% of Mexico, anybody's going to win an election in Mexico that the cartels don't want to win? They decided who won that election. So if the cartels picked who it was, you think they're going to help with them? Nope, not unless we say Mexico's not going to exist very long if you don't get control of your country. And they're going to have to bomb the shit out of all these areas to get rid of all these cartels. And the drug war should finally look like what it was supposed to look like all along. And that's a war on drugs, which means dropping bunker busting bombs on these cartel leaders' mansions. Destroy them. Drop the bombs on these cocaine producing facilities. Are innocent civilians going to be killed? No. Criminals that are processing drugs for the cartels are going to get killed. That's who's going to get killed. So the idea that, like, any of this isn't easy to fix is ridiculous. It's all easy to fix. But Donald Trump has done nothing to show that he has any wherewithal to actually do this. And he's definitely not speaking out about how he's going to do it. So if he can't speak out about how he's going to do it, then how's he going to get that message across? He's not going to. And if he can't get a message across that differentiates him from Kamala Harris, the Democrats always have an advantage in this country. They always do. Okay? And I've heard a lot of people try and say that, oh, Democrats and Republicans, they switch positions. And that's why a lot of people, uneducated voters, vote for Democrats. Okay? So, but that's another argument that they could be making every time they get in front of the camera. Like, we never switch. We were always about protecting the people. Okay? First, protecting the people was the government needed to be stronger to protect you from the robber barons, to protect you from the crooked businesses that are in bed with the Democrats that are enslaving people. Literally, and then later, figuratively. Okay? That was the whole reason, like, freedom for people is the whole reason the Democrat or the Republican Party was founded. And then the Democrats spent the next 50 years trying to make sure that black people in this country couldn't get ahead. That is not a hard message. Now, after that, Democrats suddenly said that they were going to help black people. And then for the next 50 years, every policy they came up with hurt black people. So it makes you seem like they just lied to you and they kept hurting you. That's not a hard argument to make. Focusing on race only hurts the race. Yet that's what Democrats want to do. Why can't you make that argument as a Republican? Okay? Giving people a handout does not help them succeed because government assistance keeps you in poverty. And if you never get off government assistance and get out there and earn something, start a business, be successful, you'll stay poor. The government will never lift you out of poverty. It'll just keep you from starving in poverty. That's not a message that Trump is stating. It's not a message that you're hearing out of Vance. Okay? And people going to fight for this country, how the veterans are treated. Okay, great. All we hear is Trump brag about, well, I did this, well, I did that. Great. What's she doing? What is she doing right now? She's in office. What is the administration she's a part of doing on these issues? If Trump can't get out of his ego He's just going to toss the election to Kamala Harris, and that's all there's going to be to it. Like, it's very sad that he had like a gift. Not only was he saved from being assassinated by a turn of his head, the willpower that brought, and he started squandering it as soon as he started. Well, not as soon as, like about the first 30 minutes of his speech at the Republican National Convention was good. Okay. But after that, started sounding whiny again. And every time I've watched damn near every one of his rallies, and all the dude does is whine. Okay. So, okay, great. This is the problem. Stop fucking whining about the problem. Say, this is the problem. This is what Kamala Harris and Joe are doing with it, or doing to cause it. And this is how I'm going to fix it. And if you can't get this message, you're not going to get the margin you need to overcome the cheating that is going to happen on the Democrat side. And if you can't overcome that margin, we're going to have at least 4 years of Harris, if not 8, if not forever Democrats. Trump's losing this election because it's close. If he can't stop it from being close, the election's over. So that's all I got to say on it. A lot of people aren't going to like hearing it, but that's what it is. Trump is losing the election. At this point, it damn near looks intentional, because I just can't even understand how someone can consistently and repeatedly do the wrong thing over and over and over. Trump, you have your base. It's time to stop fucking whining and go out and campaign for president of the United States. You're never going to win the popular vote. Start preaching policy. Your policy versus Kamala's policy. And then whenever she says something that's policy that's good, that contradicts what she said, no, she's lying now to be elected president, because what she wants is XYZ, and she's proven it for 30 fucking years. It's not a hard statement to make. And that's all I got to say. Trump, get on message, or you're going to lose the election. Again, Trump knows how to lose. It won't be the first election he's lost to a brain-dead competitor.